This is iPhone 10. It is the biggest leap forward since the original iPhone.
In 2017, Apple revolutionized the iPhone with their new iPhone 10, packing an edge-to-edge display in their brand new Face ID system, which to this day works incredibly well, with the only compromise being, of course, the notch, which still exists on the new iPhone 13 lineup. But thankfully, over the past year, we've been getting some very convincing leaks and rumors from various sources like the reliable Ming-Chi Kuo, the Elec, and even the legendary Mark Gurman, who are all pointing to the notch days finally being over with Apple's upcoming iPhone 14 Pro, which will feature a hole punch camera cutout design. And then just a couple of days ago, Dylan DKT on Twitter came out and confirmed that Apple will not only be switching to a hole punch design for the iPhone 14 Pro, but they're also gonna make it pill-shaped. Yes, shaped like a pill, as you can see in this render by Ben Geskin on Twitter, compared to a regular hole punch design, kind of like in this image from 9Tech11, where you have the hole punch right here and the pill-shaped cutout right over there. And after doing a bunch of research, I'm finally convinced that the iPhone 14 Pro will in fact come with a pill-shaped camera cutout. So what I'm gonna do in this video is explain exactly how Apple is gonna pull this off while keeping Face ID fully functional, and then at the end, I'm gonna reveal some custom renders of the iPhone 14 Pro that I had made by a 3D artist based on all of my research. But before we get into that, I wanna ask you guys to go ahead and click the subscribe button if you're interested in videos like these to help us reach our goal of 1 million subscribers. Now, in terms of the pill-shaped cutout story, it all begins with a video I made 4 months back before Apple even revealed the iPhone 13 lineup, and this was based on a major leak from Shrimp Apple Pro on Twitter, so let's jump right into that. Way back in the summer of last year, Shrimp Apple Pro showed us this exclusive iPhone 14 Pro display panel from one of Apple's suppliers, and as you can see, it looks crazy because you have a pill-shaped cutout right here and another bigger cutout right next to it. And I think because of that, a lot of people just wrote it off and completely ignored it. But way back then, he said that it was meant for the iPhone 14 with a punch hole, and he said there's a 70 to 80% chance that Apple would use this design. And then later on in September, he gave us another update saying that the 2022 iPhone would likely have this design, mentioning that the camera is on the right, so you can see that little cutout right there, that's for the selfie camera, and then the Face ID system would be on the left. So that bigger cutout would house some of the Face ID sensors, along with some sensors going under here as well. And I do want to remind you guys that the only reason this is possible is because with the iPhone 13, Apple took the speaker cutout with the built-in microphone and everything, and they put it up to the top of the frame, so it's essentially going to sit above the display panel right there, and that is the reason why Apple is able to basically free up this portion, this gap, in between the camera and the sensors and the top of the iPhone. And now going back to Shrimp Apple Pro's leak, he says that Apple is doing it for both the 6.1-inch iPhone Pro and the 6.7-inch iPhone Pro Max, which makes total sense. And this is actually based on Ross Young's excellent display leaks, because Ross Young has an 100% accuracy rating with displays, so he's very good. Now check out this chart. Ross Young believes that there's gonna be 4 different iPhone models next year. There's gonna be the regular 6.1-inch iPhone 14, but then there's gonna be an iPhone 14 Max. So it's gonna get the larger display, but it's not gonna get all of the extra features. And then of course you got the iPhone 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max with no mini size at all. But if we take a closer look at this chart, we can see some very interesting details. What Ross is basically confirming is that both the regular iPhone 14 and 14 Max models will still get the regular Face ID with the current iPhone 13 notch. However, both of the Pro models, the Pro and the Pro Max, are gonna be getting the new under-display Face ID system with the cutout. And if we go back to Dylan DKT's tweet just a couple of days ago, he said that the Face ID hardware will be placed underneath the display, basically exactly what Ross Young said. So if we go to Shrimp Apple Pro's leak, it looks like this extra cutout on the side is actually going to be unnecessary. So that leaves us with a perfectly centered, pill-shaped cutout. And with that said, the big question we have to answer is how exactly is Apple gonna put the Face ID hardware under the display? So let's go ahead and explain how that is gonna work by looking at the original iPhone X's Face ID system. As you can see in this image of the entire true depth sensor array for Face ID, we of course have the infrared camera, then the proximity sensor, the flood illuminator, the ambient light sensor, the speaker, the microphone, the camera, and the dot projector. So first of all, we know that the speaker and microphone are already out of the notch. They're all the way up to the top of the display on the iPhone 13, but we still have those other Face ID sensors that we have to put underneath the display. And before we get into it, the most important thing to understand about Face ID is that it works using an infrared camera system. So for example, both the flood illuminator and the dot projector shine infrared light onto your face, as you can see in this video example. And that detail is extremely important for enabling Apple to put it underneath the display. So for example, we see the original Face ID sensor right here, the dot projector, the flood illuminator, and everything else. However, Apple made some major changes to the design of the iPhone 13's notch. As you can see right here in iFixit's teardown, one thing they mentioned is that the notch is now 20% narrower on the 13 Pro compared to the 12 Pro, which you can see basically right here. Look how much narrower it is. Boom, 13 right there, and that's the 12, much longer. And the reason they're able to do that is because Apple was able to merge the flood illuminator and the dot projector into a single module. As you can see right here with the new iPhone 13, and that's the old iPhone 12 design. So here's what I believe Apple is gonna do with the new iPhone 14 Pro design. They're gonna take that new dot projector and flood illuminator single module, and then they're gonna stick it under the display right there because it works using infrared light. So behind the display, it's still gonna be able to shine those dots and the light onto your face and make Face ID work, which is very, very important. So now if we go back to the original Face ID system, both the dot projector and flood illuminator are now gonna be under the display. On top of that, the speaker and microphone are gone, leaving just the camera, the infrared camera, and the ambient light and proximity sensors. And that brings us to the next very important detail. If you look at this image of the iPhone 13 display panel, you'll see some light leaking behind this little area on the display. And guess what? With the iPhone 13, Apple was able to put the ambient light sensor completely underneath the display. So if you look at that, the only things remaining are the camera, the infrared camera, and the proximity sensor. So with all that said, I found this little image on Twitter showing the new pill-shaped cutout with all the components within it, and some of them are actually wrong because the ambient light sensor is not within the hole punch, it's actually underneath the display, and I believe that the dot projector is also gonna be underneath the display alongside with the flood illuminator, leaving only the front camera, the infrared camera because it's gonna have a hard time reading it, and potentially the proximity sensor. So yeah, that's how I think Apple is gonna pull this off with this pill-shaped cutout, which I think makes a lot of sense because no other Android phone had a pill-shaped cutout centered like this. And I think this design looks really good, and I think this is gonna be a really good choice for Apple to do. And I personally believe that Apple's gonna stick to this design for the next couple of years until they can finally put all of it under the display, which is gonna be very difficult, especially the selfie camera, but we might see it in a couple of years. And of course, the regular iPhone 14 models are gonna have the same old notch from the iPhone 13. And finally, to finish off this video, let's get into my predictions for the design of the iPhone 14 Pro, and Renders by Shailesh helped me out with some custom renders that are based on, of course, the designs from John Prosser and Ian Zelbo, with this awesome looking iPhone 4S style design with the circular buttons, and of course, the cover glass extending both ways. And along with that, I also took some rumors from Dylan DKT, who believes that Apple is going to remove the physical SIM card with the iPhone 14 Pro models at least. And here we go. Here is the reveal of the renders. And bam, that's the iPhone 14 Pro, or at least what I believe it's gonna look like. There's no SIM card tray. You have the glass extending out the front and the back, except I personally believe that the camera bump is still gonna stick out a little bit further than the glass compared to having it flush like John Prosser believes. And of course, we have the new pill-shaped cutout with the camera on the left side. So that is my design for the iPhone 14 Pro. And if you guys completely disagree with me, go ahead and comment down below. But I think this looks absolutely beautiful, and I would pay more than $1,000 for this design if they up the price, which I think they're gonna do. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and if you did, go ahead and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. Check out one of those two right over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.